Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News. Today is Thursday. It's the 9th day of May, 2024. And there's really only one story today that needs to be dealt with, and that is Joe Biden. Yesterday, he made it clear that the United States is going to withhold weapons from Israel, weapons that are needed to defeat Hamas. He said he's concerned about the civilian population of Hamas. He said Israel's already killed civilians there. And so he's basically going to hold back those weapons that Israel has paid for, that the Congress has agreed that Israel must get. And so, as you can imagine, the response has been widespread across the board, except Chuck Schumer thought Biden did a great job in doing this. He said, I trust Joe Biden. But apart from the Jewish senator there from New York, most people in the United States and elsewhere are outraged by this. And we're going to talk about that today and the repercussions, the fallout of it, because it's really huge. This is a huge story. Now, we've been warning about this. They've been threatening this and saying this, but the first time he's come out and say it, and he's admitted, Lloyd Austin yesterday, the defense secretary admitted they're withholding these weapons from Israel because they do not believe Israel should go into Rafah and get rid of Hamas. In other words, they want to leave Hamas in place. And we're going to talk about all that today. And it's a sad day for the U.S. because there's going to be repercussions, not only from around the world, but from God himself, because what he says about who Israel is, even in unbelief here in the last days, who own the land. All right, headline one, Biden threatens to halt transfer of offensive weapons to Israel if IDF enters Rafah. U.S. President Joe Biden says his administration will not support Israel or provide it with offensive weapons if it launches an offensive against Hamas in populated parts of Rafah. I've made it clear to Bibi and the War Cabinet they're not going to get our support if they go into these population centers, Biden said in a CNN interview. The interview marks Biden's toughest public comments yet about the potential Israeli military operation in Rafah amid concerns in Washington that Israel is not planning to heed its warnings against an offensive that the administration says fails to take into account the over 1 million Palestinians sheltering in Gaza's southernmost city. The remarks also appear to be a threat by Biden to make permanent the hold his administration placed last week on a transfer of heavy bombs, citing concerns they could be used by Israelis in densely populated areas of Rafah, like they have in other parts of Gaza. I made it clear that if they haven't gone into Rafah yet, that I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah, to deal with the cities that deal with that problem, Biden says. Arguing that the operation launched by the IDF earlier this week was limited to the Rafah border crossing, even though it's causing problems with Egypt, which I've worked very hard to make sure we have a relationship and help. Yeah. Civilians, now here's what civilians have been killed in Gaza as a consequence of those bombs and other ways in which Israel goes after population centers, he said, referring to the 2,000-pound bombs that his administration held up last week. He clarifies that the U.S. will continue supplying Israel with Iron Dome missile interceptors and other defensive weapons to ensure Jerusalem can respond to attacks from adversaries across the region, such as last month's massive missile and drone barrage from Iran. But it's just wrong. We're not going to supply the weapons and artillery shells, Biden asserts. So he blames Israel for killing civilians, worried that more will die if Israel roots out the evil Hamas out of Rafah and gets rid of their military power. But he has no realistic plan except creating a Palestinian state next to Israel, next door to Israel, literally, whose people seek Israel's destruction. Now, we've talked about this before. United States not being a player in last days Bible prophecy. We've got that in our book, 25 Signs. We're near the end. There's certain nations that are missing from the Ezekiel 38-39 invasion. The United States is one of them. We also mentioned in our book, God wants us to know the future. It's kind of the first in the series of Bible prophecy. It's an introduction to Bible prophecy, Appendix 1. Basically, we look at what God had said to Abraham, the promises to Abraham and why they're so important, what part they play in the last days. And like we mentioned, in his promises, he talks about at the time of the end, when he intervenes in the Ezekiel 38-39 war, he says the people are going to be safe in their own land. It's still their land at the time of the end. And also, in our book, 25 Signs, we're near the end, on two appendices, the biblical answer to the ownership of the promised land, who owns it, And again, who are the Palestinians? Appendix 5 and 6. So again, from God Wants Us to Know the Future, Appendix 1, Appendix 5 and 6, from 25 signs. We're near the end. We've got it all listed out there for you. They are free downloads from our website, Educating Our World. We don't sell anything here. Everything's giveaway. Everything's free for you to use and shamelessly promote and tell others about and learn from, because it's biblical truth. And particularly here, it's very, very important we know this, because this is basically the corner that Biden wants to put Israel in, and it's beyond horrible. So anyway, that's the headline story. Now the response. Okay. United States Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, said delaying arms to Israel akin to Hiroshima and Nagasaki on steroids. The GOP lawmaker said the U.S. will pay a price for this obscene decision to stop weapons to Israel at a time of great peril. The State Department says considering delaying further weapon shipments to Israel in response to the Rafah operation. Now, as a background to what I'm about to say, let me ask you a question. What were the most profound words ever spoken or written in the 20th century? The most profound words. Can you think of something? John Kennedy's asked not what you can do for your country, what your country can do for you, but you can do for your country. That's very memorable. Neil Armstrong on the moon, one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. There's been others, Churchill made some profound statements, even Hitler did, that are remembered. But to me, the most profound words in the 20th century were written in a diary, August 6th, 1945, by a man named Robert Lewis. And he said, "My God, what have we done?" Robert Lewis was the co-pilot on the Enola Gay that dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. And in that bomb, Hiroshima, then later Nagasaki, 80% of the people that were killed were civilians. There were two cities in Japan of civilian population. And for years and years, the U.S. hid that fact that they were not military targets. And that's why Lindsey Graham said, this is akin to Hiroshima and Nagasaki on steroids. Well, this is what we're seeing happen right now. He's trying to basically tie Israel's hands from finishing the job. Now, Israel will finish the job. They have weapons, but they're not as precise. And because of that, more people will be killed, sadly, more civilians, probably there's more collateral damage. Like we talked about yesterday, it's in a war, there's always civilians that are accidentally killed. Hiroshima and Nagasaki weren't accidents, but the U.S. has accidentally killed people. All armies do. They don't mean to, but that just is sort of the problem with war. So anyway, that's Lindsey Graham response. Now, headline 3, Biden accused of helping Hamas as Israel outraged by threatened weapons freeze. As you can imagine, across the board, I could be reading now till 10 minutes after the last judgment, the comments that people have made, but we'll just read a couple of them. Donald Trump, Crooked Joe siding with the terrorists. Former Foreign Minister Katz from Israel, fight against Hamas, won't halt. He's the envoy to the UN. Biden says it could suffer loss in November. U.S. Jewish groups, GOP, some Democrats denounced the move. A threat by President Biden that some arms shipments will be frozen if Israel launches a planned offensive in Rafah has been met with swift denunciation from governmental figures in Jerusalem on Thursday, who indicated that the military would push ahead regardless. That's what Israel's going to do. In an apparent initial reaction from the Israeli government, Foreign Minister Israel Katz wrote on social media platform X, Israel will continue to fight Hamas until its destruction. There is no war more just than this, he added without directly referencing Biden. And then you've got the Republicans accuse Biden, our next headline, of withholding arms from Israel for personal political reasons, pandering to a pro-Hamas mob. And again, story after story, comment after comment, their long list. Republican officials are blasting the current wildly anti-Israel administration for withholding crucial ammunition from Israel in its war on the terror group Hamas, accusing Joe Biden of carrying water for the pro-Hamas mob in order to appease his radical anti-Semitic base and the Democrat Party's pro-Hamas wing and for his own personal gain. As Breitbart reported, several news outlets have confirmed that the Biden administration is withholding 3,500 bombs from Israel, which is currently battling Hamas, a U.S. designated Islamic terror group that attacked the Jewish state, of course, on October 7th in an unprecedented and particularly brutal massacre. In addition, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, we mentioned this, confirmed yesterday to the Senate Appropriations Committee he is withholding a shipment of weapons to Israel over concerns about the ongoing attack on Hamas in Rafah, though the Jewish state security depends on disbanding Hamas's remaining battalions there. Now, critics of the decision, this is interesting, have argued that withholding weapons that Congress has already authorized, absent any finding of human rights violations by Israel, is unconstitutional and violates the Impound Control Act of 1974. In response to the decision, the GOP members called out the current administration, accusing it of betraying a steadfast ally and catering to pro-Hamas Democrats instead. Mitch McConnell says the Biden administration says their commitment to Israel is ironclad. If they meant it, then it's time to stop bending to pressure from campus communists and give our ally the time, space, and support it needs to destroy the terrorists threaten Israel and Palestinians alike. And that's true. They're threatening their own people. That's right on for McConnell. He's the Senate Republican leader from Kentucky. Biden says he wants Israel to be more careful and precise, but he's withholding precision-guided munitions that would reduce civilian casualties. That's Tom Cotton, Senator Republican from Arkansas. The truth is Biden wants Hamas to remain in power. Marco Rubio, I'm sure Hamas is very happy with the Biden administration's decision, blasting the treatment of a longtime ally who is fighting an existential threat. Elise Stefanik, Republican from New York, said Joe Biden is withholding aid from Israel, giving Iran and its proxies the green light to escalate attacks against our ally. He has also held back munitions that would more directly target Hamas while limiting collateral damage. The Biden administration and Joe Biden himself have failed to support Israel. They are more concerned about their pro-Hamas wing and the Democrat Party. Well, this is true, and this is exactly what's going on. But like we said, it's going to affect the United States, literally, because God said to Abram, as we talk about a number of times, I'm going to bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you. Genesis 12, 1-3, 4,000 years ago. We've laid it out historically. Those who have blessed Israel have been blessed. Those who have cursed them have been cursed. So this person is bringing a curse on the United States of America by doing this. Now, again, you're going to say, wait a minute, he doesn't represent me. Well, 80% of the people in some of the latest polls says they believe Israel should finish off Hamas. And he may not represent us personally, but he is the president of the United States. And like we try to tell people before the 2020 election, elections do matter. When I had so many people tell me, oh, it doesn't matter who gets in the White House, Biden or Trump. You think so now? Well, anyway, that's what we see happen. Now, the last story, Biden's double game on Hamas should fool no one, because he gave this speech the other day, and we're going to talk about it, about he is just the Holocaust and he's, pro-Israel and never again this and that. He gives that with one hand, and the other hand he takes away. A presidential speech condemned past and present anti-Semitism. However, it contradicted policies aimed at letting the terrorists win and appeasing pro-Hamas voters. Yet the president said the people are already forgetting. They're already forgetting that Hamas unleashed this terror. It was Hamas that brutalized Israelis. It was Hamas who took and continues to hold hostages. I have not forgotten, nor have you, and we will not forget. That's what Biden just said. And as the article says, a broken promise. While his words earned the applause they garnered, that last statement isn't true. That's because his policies, as distinct from some of the speeches that were like those at the Holocaust ceremony, largely aimed at Jewish voters, contradict that promise. Although he initially endorsed the Israeli goal of eliminating Hamas and seemed to implicitly commit to that again in his speech, the entire thrust of Biden's current Middle East policy is quite the opposite. He is doing everything he can, including threats of cutting off certain military weapons, stalling deliveries of bombs, diplomatic maneuvers at the United Nations, and duplicitous efforts to push through an agreement with the terrorist group to save Hamas from defeat just when Israel put it on the ropes. Biden has essentially been playing a double game on the war with Hamas since October 7th. I'm glad someone said that, and we've been saying that every day since October 7th. He is not a friend of Israel. The people he's put in places of leadership in the State Department and other parts of his administration are anti-Semites. And we see it come out. And so here we are. And Israel's going to go forward, and we'll see if Biden tries to do any more, sanctions against them. Already not delivering the needed weapons that have been paid for, been authorized by Congress. So it's a sad day for the U.S. It really is. But like we said, it is not surprising with who these people are. And so we'll continue to bring you the latest. We'll be back again this afternoon with the latest updates. I'm sure there'll be more stories to share with you. So again, just pray for the people of Israel, pray for the Palestinians too, those people that are there in harm's way, that many of them will probably die because Israel didn't get these weapons, and many more Israelis sadly will die because they can't do what they need to do militarily in going in and ridding the world of this scourge, Hamas. All right, I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. Until the next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.